Good morning, and thank you for joining me again. My name is Toby Tompkins. I'm the CEO and founder of Safio. And before we get started, I want to say thank you for all of the wonderful messages and wonderful things that you've been saying about our Monday morning message on beautiful leadership. I've been reading all of them, and I really, really appreciate your comments. And I'm glad that this is making a difference as you start your week. Today, I have a big topic to talk about, so I want to jump right in. And this is going to require you to do some homework this week. So pull out a pad, write this down so that you are ready to do the homework that I have for you. Today's topic is how to become a do no harm leader. Now, the intention of every beautiful leader should be to live beautifully and to lead beautifully. That is what I have termed as my epidemic intention. Now, what is your epidemic intention in life? Think about your role as a spouse or a parent, and of course, as a leader. We all have intentions that the people who know us or love us or rely upon us are very clear. They stand out as the things that are the essence of who we are in that relationship. So to accomplish anything epidemic, particularly as a leader, can feel like a nearly impossible feat. But the best way to accomplish the impossible is to attack it from its root by creating, it's not recording. Oh yeah, it's recording. Okay. To accomplish it from its root by creating small but intentional habits. What James Clear in his best-selling book of the same title refers to as atomic habits. Now, we'll talk more about atomic habits in a beautiful leadership future episode. But for this Monday morning message, I want to actually draw you to the text of an ancient and wise Greek doctor named Hippocrates. Hippocrates was a physician who was born around 460 BC and is credited with being the first human to believe that human diseases were caused naturally, not because of superstition and gods, which occupied much of the implicit bias and shared beliefs of the day. I like Hippocrates because he began the notion that we should root our understanding of life in nature. And I totally agree with that, particularly as I talk about leadership, because nature has wisdom, 3.9 billion years of wisdom, as a matter of fact. And there's a lot that we can learn from nature. Now, of the 60 books attributed to Hippocrates, 7 of them were actually about the issue of epidemics. And in the first book of the 7 about epidemics, the second part, paragraph 5, as a matter of fact, he says, in illnesses, one should keep 2 things in mind: to be useful rather than cause no harm. Very interesting statement. And if you break that apart, what he's really saying is 2 things you want to keep in mind. 1, to be useful, i.e. to lead, or in our case, to lead beautifully, rather than to cause harm. So that is the subject of this. How do you lead? How are you useful as a leader in causing no harm? Now, this text, first and foremost, makes a powerful and fundamental question about the importance of having a strong will as a leadership, or epidemic intention as a leader. You see, a weak intention is much more likely to produce a harmful or unintended impact than a strong or epidemic will. What harm do you intentionally create through your leadership? Well, think about your employees, customers, shareholders, citizens, patients, children. Most of us would say, oh, we don't intentionally create harm for anyone. We're actually nice people. We're good guys. We believe in freedom and liberty and equality. We have all of these beliefs, but a belief is something very different than an intention. Now, answer this question for yourself. What harm do you intentionally combat through your leadership? I would suspect that's a more difficult question to answer, but both have to do with the power of your intention. The overfocus right now in corporate America on understanding our implicit bias as a strategy to do no harm is not only wasting our time and valuable resources in the workplace and our society, in some cases, it's actually producing more harm. Let me give you an unfortunate example. Last summer, the CEO of Wells Fargo made an unfounded statement about the lack of qualified talent pipeline from which he could recruit senior level Black and brown leadership into the banking sector. After a loud outcry from the public, he retracted his comments and claimed that he was a victim of his own implicit bias. In reality, he was a victim of his own weak intention as a leader to do no harm. If somewhere in his ascension to the top of the banking elite, he had cultivated or been held accountable for creating an intention about creating access to the developmental opportunities for people of all diversities within his leadership ranks, and that intention was of an epidemic level, then he would be leading a very different kind of organization today, especially one that is known for having a history of harmful impact in communities of color because of their community banking practices. So what can you do as a leader to make sure that you lead in a way that produces no harm? Well, here's a test that you should only do after you have answered the question I initially posed to you earlier. And here's the question again. What is your epidemic intention as a leader to your employees? Now, once you've answered that question, I want you to apply a test. And I'm going to take you through this test, and I'm going to use as an example female new recruits to your company who've been there for 2 years or less. So here's a test you can easily apply simply by asking the following questions. All right, what happens more frequently to female new recruits at my company than other groups of new recruits? What is more difficult for them to overcome than other groups of new recruits? And what harm or benefit do they experience that other new recruits to my company do not? Now, you can't just say, well, I don't know. What you have to actually do is you have to ask, start with the people who are part of your C-suite and ask them, not to get the data, but from their own critical observations, ask them these same questions. Have a conversation about each question and then listen to what they say. Okay? This is not about looking for blame. It's about gaining deeper understanding. And once you've done that, drop me a note. Let me know what you heard. Let me know what you've seen. Because before we get to the fixing, we have to understand truly the link between your intention as a leader, right? And the power of that intention, and the intended and unintended impact that it is having in your organization or through your leadership. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me. Join me again on Thursday for Ask Toby, and have a fantastic week. All right, take care.